I'm going to run down the narratives that I took away from this game because USC LSU was to me the most entertaining game of the week, but this was the game that I wanted to see more than any game. And it did not disappoint. Hey, if you wanted 42-40, yes, it disappointed those people, but we got what we expected. We talked about it last week. We got 13-13, 5 minutes to play, and Riley Leonard bringing the boys down the field. And you just saw so I'm going to go to the first takeaway that I had, and it's not a unique one because it was talked about ad nauseum after the game, and rightfully so by the sideline reporter talking to Riley Leonard and Marcus Freeman. It was the development that you could see in front of your eyes of this offensive line that is one of the least experienced offensive lines that we've seen that's had to be thrown on a field for a top 10 team. Just grow and grow and grow and make a lot of mistakes, but get better right in front of our eyes.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing you really wanted to look, you knew you were going to get mistakes for two reasons. Number one, not only are they young and inexperienced, but they're going against a very good Texas A&M defensive line, which is also something we talked about. And I think, honestly, Mark, I don't know if there would have been the same angst amongst Notre Dame fans if they had like 3 get-right games before, game 4. Like, hey, we're going to have 4 games to get those guys ready, or 3 games, and then they're going to be fine. I mean, you're getting thrown to the wolves game 1, I mean, and what we needed to see was just, will they compete? Will they battle? They're going to get beat. I mean, look, you could have started Joe Walton, Blake Fisher could have came back, and you were going to be worried about that Texas A&M defensive line, right? Because it's a great defensive line. But they battled and competed, and at the end of the day, when the game mattered most, they're the ones that did what they needed to do. They got a body on a body, got good movement, and everybody's talking about the Texas heat and all that kind of stuff. Well, fourth quarter, Notre Dame was the team that handled that better. It was Texas A&M players cramping up on the field and on the sideline. It was Texas A&M players that were kind of, hands on their hips, and it was the Notre Dame players. You started to see the offensive linemen in the fourth quarter start to kind of run their mouths a little bit, like they were feeling it. And the Texas A&M players are kind of sitting there, hands on their hips, and they were tired because they had been fighting all game. And it was certainly a key part of that victory was the fact that when it mattered most, offense, defense, special teams all stepped up and made the plays, but couldn't have done that if the offensive line wouldn't have stepped up and did what they needed to do.
And one of the most rabid places that you can play, and the offensive linemen also didn't get rattled. So they're facing that kind of front, they're facing that kind of crowd. That's the one unit on the field more than any other where the components have to be gelled together, and they just got better and better. Now that you've reviewed it, is there any particular guys that you're especially proud of, especially stepped up?
Well, you got to look at the 2 young guys. I mean, look, I thought Ashton Craig didn't snap well, but he blocked well. I thought Billy Schrouth handled himself exactly how I thought he'd play. Lost some battles, won a lot more battles than he lost. I thought he was their best lineman. The 3 young kids is really where it starts. I mean, they went out and competed. I thought Emil Wagner was just steady throughout the game. Anthony Knapp and Sam Pendleton had a lot of issues in the game, struggles with pass protection of not just knowing who to block. At times they got tossed a little bit, especially Anthony Knapp got tossed a couple times by some of those big defensive ends. And Sam Pendleton had some misses and didn't finish quite right, but it didn't phase them. I mean, it really didn't phase them, Mark. And that's the key is they came out in the second half, and as they got their feet well a little bit, they started making plays. And I could point to 5 or 6 plays by Sam Pendleton. We're like, dude, you got to be way better than that. But go look at every big play that Notre Dame had. It was almost every time, I believe, right behind Sam Pendleton, because he made some huge blocks in that game. And that's what you want to see, right? Like you expect the mistakes. But what I've always said, Mark, in one of my big frustrations with the previous head coach was the unwillingness to play younger players unless they had to. My whole point was always, you're going to have to live with some of those mistakes. You're going to have to live with the times that they don't get it right. But the trade-off is, but look what they do when they are right. When the more talented player plays, he's going to get better with more experience. But even when he's not yet experienced, he's going to have some plays like Anthony Knapp had on Saturday night, like Sam Pendleton had on Saturday night, where they're going to do some impressive things. And then when that happens and you got the backs that Notre Dame has, big things are going to happen, and that's exactly what. So we saw it on defense too. Here's the crazy thing, the focus on the offensive line, Mark. Notre Dame started 9 offensive players on Saturday night that either have freshman or sophomore eligibility, and got a 10-point win on the road in a game where a lot of national people didn't think that they could win the game.
Now, I think we uncovered some breaking news there that you have some issues with the previous head coach. I don't think anyone
Couple.
knows about
No,
that. I think that,
I've done a
that's
really good job of keeping that to myself and not really talking about it a whole lot, so, but, on your show, I'll let everybody know. I'll let everybody know what's going on.
oh, that's great. So you heard it here first. Wink, wink. We'll stay with the offense. Riley Leonard. Now he's played better games, but when it counted, he kind of pulled it together.
Well, one of the knocks on Riley Leonard coming in was, not a great passer. We saw some of that on Saturday, but he hasn't beat any ranked teams or teams that were ended up being ranked or whatever. And well, you can't say that now, right? I mean, he beat another ranked team last year. Started the season off with a win over Clemson, and this is what you brought him here for, right, Mark? I mean, look, there's going to be days where he doesn't have it as a passer, but he's a playmaker, and that's what you and I talked about last week. Is he's got to be a playmaker, and that's what he was. And Mike Denbrock did a good job of, okay, Riley isn't feeling it as a passer, so let's lean into some of the other stuff that we've got going on. But, kind of like the rest of the offensive line and like the defense and the special teams, when the game was on the line, Riley made his two best throws. And that's really where you need to be. Is he's going to get better. He's going to, get more on the same page, get in the rhythm and things like that. But he showed why you brought him in, and that was to make plays. And that was to show, I mean, you could see him on the sideline kind of smiling, and he just was kind of really calm. And you also need that from your leader as well. And the players responded. But at the end of the day, Texas A&M's entire game plan was geared towards not letting Riley beat him. And that was a big part of the reason you saw some of the plays open up that the other running backs had, is because there's this focus on attacking, on the edge to stop Riley. And, oh, hey, I got a couple running backs I got to worry about as well. And they went off and made some big plays in the game.
I didn't gain any revelations from the way the wide receivers or the running backs played. They played to the expectation that I have. I think it was a good effort out of that group in terms of being weapons. They weren't going to tear up this Texas A&M defense, and that wasn't the game plan. It wasn't that type of game. But what did you come away with from the running backs and the receivers?
Well, I thought the running backs did what we hoped that they would do. They're two very dynamic athletes. You needed to get big plays. One of the things I had in my keys to victory last week, Mark, was I actually think you were in that chat, listen to that a little bit, but I said, look, you've got to generate big plays, and big plays are going to be a big part of this game because neither offense was good enough to consistently move the ball up and down the field against what are two of the better defenses in college football, in my opinion. So you're going to have to generate big plays. Texas A&M, I don't think, had a single play over 20 yards in the game, and Notre Dame had 5. And that really it was a big part of this game, and the running backs fueled it and should have had another one. I still think that was a very questionable holding penalty there on Ashton Craig. But then you come back on the very next play on 1st and 25, she was a little bit shorter than that, because for 1st and 20, but I think it was like 1st and 14 because it actually happened down the field. And then you run another play and you gain 29 yards, and that was a big part of it. So I think the running back showed me that they've got some playmaking ability, and we knew they had it in practice, and we'd seen it in flashes last year because they do it in moments where they were the guy, and I thought they did it. The receivers were okay. Look, there was a lot more opportunities, Mark, and I could send you a couple clips from the All-22 that, where Chris Mitchell's open on a dig cut, and on that same play, Bo Collins beats a corner so bad on a corner route that the guy falls down, and if Riley reads it correctly pre-snap, he's wide open for what would have been about a 50-yard or so touchdown. And so the quarterback didn't get them the ball as in the places they needed to, but there was also some times where they didn't do themselves enough favors off the line with good enough moves, and the blocking was inconsistent. But Jaden Thomas makes a huge block on the touchdown run, so it really looked a lot like, to me, what you expect to see in the first game, Mark, which is a bunch of guys trying to get on the same page. And but again, it's as a coach, Mark, you don't worry as much in game one about the assignment mistakes, the technical mistakes, because you're not a finished product in week one. But what I believe, and what I've always felt as a coach, and what I feel now, is you don't need experience to play hard. You don't need experience experience doesn't necessarily tell you whether you have fortitude or not. And what this team showed on Saturday night is that they have that. They're gonna fight. They're gonna compete. And when their backs are against the wall, they're gonna go out there and not shy away from the moment and make plays, because that was a loud, great environment on Saturday night. And this team has showed some they have shirts that say grit on the back, and you saw that on Saturday night. That's exactly what that was.
So, Brian, what I can't figure out, but also seem to be just a talking point, and you know how, especially these national TV games, they build a couple narratives, and then if they're reinforced, then they just hang on them. And the offensive line, understandably so. The secondary. So we know the secondary is talented. We know it's a good secondary, but considering the Texas A&M's as limited as they are in the passing game, and especially a wide receiver, I heard a lot of talk coming out of this game. Wow, look at the secondary. The secondary is amazing.
Yeah.
Your thoughts about their play?
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, did you expect Texas A&M to light Notre Dame up throwing the football? No, I didn't. I don't think you did
No,
either,
no,
right?
no.
But there's not lighting a team up, and then there's only having 100 yards on 30 attempts and only averaging 3.3 yards per attempt. I mean, there's a big difference between, yeah, we didn't expect them to light it up and having that level of production, right? And when you look at what this secondary has done, this is kind of par for the course for the secondary. So I think that narrative is sometimes, Mark, you and I both know there's narratives that go into games and come out of games that aren't really backed up by facts or maybe how the game played out. But this Notre Dame secondary was elite, and it allowed them to make a lot of plays in other areas because Al Golden can just say, hey, listen, I'm going to put my cornerbacks on an island and lock you down. And then that allows your safeties to do what? Kind of roam and do different things against the run and against the pass. And even the first interception, people said, oh, he sails that ball if he throws an accurate pass. If he throws an accurate pass, Adon Schuler is driving down on that route. Maybe he catches it, maybe he doesn't. But you also had a defender underneath. That's not as easy to throw as people think. It may be easy on college football 2025, but it's not easy in real life, especially when you got Boubacar Traore coming right in your face on your throwing hand. So, but that's just kind of what Notre Dame does. I mean, they play tight coverage. They throw a lot of different looks at you from a coverage standpoint. And the fact that you had a Don Schuler and Christian Gray making two of the biggest plays of the game and not Xavier Watson, Benjamin Morrison is probably where the next 11 opponents are like, seriously, come on. I've already got to deal with Morrison and Xavier Watson. Now I gotta have Christian Gray locking people down, and I got a Don Schuler out there making plays. You got to be kidding me. This is Notre Dame. They're not supposed to have athletes like that, but they do, and that's the job that Mike Mickens has done, and this Notre Dame coaching staff has done. As Marcus Freeman completely rebuilds this roster in his image.